So that way we have it in reserve. Then if I run out, I don't have to go to the store. The things I do for coffee, I tell you, man.
Well, I always say, ask not what spandex can do for you, but what you can fit into spandex.
I think spandex is a privilege, not a right. Don't nobody want to see this in spandex. Could you imagine me in a wetsuit?
Why would you put such imagery into somebody's head?
Well, it would look like a Teletubby at a funeral, man. I mean, no, you don't want. Nobody
You know
wants to
what
see
would be?
that. It would be scaring the kids.
Well, if we had like a WWF where we had like the Andre the Giant with the one strap off his um, we'd be perfect for that.
I have a question. How come Andre the Giant in the one strap loincloth was okay, but Ted Nugent wasn't?
Because you don't want to contradict Andre the Giant.
Okay, well, that is a point. But I wouldn't want to contradict Ted either. So
No, that's true too. But everything's safer when you're saying it behind a keyboard over the internet, isn't it true?
yeah, very much so.
Guilty as charged.
You were talking about Andre the Giant. I was just thinking about that scene in The Princess Bride where he says, "Beat it all!" Billy Crystal as Miracle Max says, "Beat it or I'll call the Brute Squad." And Andre the Giant looks down at him and says, "I'm on the Brute Squad." He looks up at him and kind of looks at his shoulder and says, "You are the Brute Squad."
So welcome back to the Trampled Under. Your hosts are Mark Lindsay and Eloy Escajedo over here on the East Coast, West Coast over there. Nothing. Welcome to the show. We've got some topics. Oh, we've planned and we've tweaked. We've sat at our desks and worked on it, pouring over documentation to bring you the best that we can afford.
I've been here with an ashtray and a cup for at least 6 minutes. And
Yeah.
I'm just not used to working this hard.
Well, you know, we give it our all.
I want to start with something, and because I'm known as the complainer of the crowd,
Oh, and I'm not.
I like to complain about a lot of stuff. But I'm not so full of myself that I can't say when something is absolutely right, and I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
And this is just one of these weird little asides that happen in real life. Something plain and simple. Our printer needed toner. We have a laser printer. It needed toner. So, okay, fine, no problem. We went down to the office store and we bought a new cartridge for it. And I bring it home and open it up. And the first thing I see is this, sheet of paper. And I'm thinking, okay, instructions. I set it aside and I pull it off of the little styrofoam goodies. I take it out of the bag and I read through the little instruction sheet. And then there's another piece of paper tucked down there in the box. And then I look at that, what I thought were instructions, and it's a little leaflet. And this company, I normally don't call out companies, but I will. This company, Brother, they said, we're trying to do our part to reduce the amount of waste going into the landfill. So if you'll put your old toner cartridge back in this little foil bag, tape it up, put the styrofoam back on it, put it back in the box. Here's a prepaid label. Send your old cartridge back to us. That to me is not an inconvenience. I will happily do that because I don't like waste. I really don't. I do not like waste.
Do those? Oh, go ahead.
And for them to do that at no cost to me, okay, I'm happy to do it. And I think that is something cool because I am about options. You give people the option, a certain percentage are going to take it, a certain percentage are never going to read that thing and they're going to throw it out. But I think it's cool to give people the option. So, in my opinion, right on, brother. Thank you for doing that. And it's in the mail. That's all. I mean, it doesn't really amount to much of anything. But I think it's one thing to talk the talk, but it's another thing to walk that walk. and giving somebody the option to do that, I think it's great. Um, Steve said, "Brother's been doing that for well over 20 years. This is the first time I've seen it. They didn't in the last couple of toner cartridges we bought. I've had Brother cartridges since, excuse me, I've had Brother laser printers since, I want to say the first one I got was in 2001. This is the first time I've seen it. So if they have done it, they didn't make it this easy. But thank you, brother, for making it this easy." So that
Wow,
was all I had to say.
that's quite the endorsement.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. Now, Office Depot used to have a thing where if you brought them back your old ink cartridge or your old toner cartridge, they would give you a free ream of printer paper. And I thought that was cool too,
And
because
why do they do that again?
just to get you to bring back that cartridge, because what they'll do is they'll refill it and sell it as a remanufactured cartridge, which is cheaper than and Brother does sell both. They sell brand new and they sell remanufactured. And the remanufactured are cheaper because it's using a used cartridge that they've gone through, cleaned up, and all that other good stuff. But they're not having to make all the components all over again. They can just clean it up, refill it, and sell
It's
it on.
cost effective at some point for them.
It's cost effective for everybody involved. Yeah. So it's kind of like the old days. Remember when you would take a glass bottle back to the store, and get your 3 cents or 5 cents deposit off of it? It was going back to the bottling company, and they would clean them out, refill them, and you'd probably see it next week, in the store.
Yeah, I mean, what am I to say? It just makes me think these companies. It's like razors.
Hmm.
The expense of, I mean, razors are like it's like deciding
Hmm.
on planning on catering for a wedding.
Yeah.
It's like, come on,
And do you really need 13 blades on your razor?
I do.
Now, I don't know about you, but when I do this and I see that there's still some stuff, I just do it again. I don't wonder, if I only had 6 more blades on this sucker, maybe it would have got all that in one swipe. Is doing this twice really that much of a bore?
No, but the cheap ones don't work for me.
Yeah,
They don't freaking cut. It just slides over the hairs.
yeah, they do for about 15 seconds, and then it,
It's like such. It's like, what the heck, Anyways, I was thinking with the printers, they also have refills. Are those cartridges easy to refill them yourself?
toner cartridges. I don't know if toner cartridges are easy to refill or not. But I do know that today, they also have a little chip in there that monitors how low it is. So if you refill it, it'll still tell the printer it's empty,
Right,
unless you have a little doodad that.
and that's all so that people can go keep buying. And
Well,
this, well, go ahead, but
well,
like,
the thing is, on the laser printer, you can tell because the quality of the print starts to fade as well. So you
but if
can
they,
tell. Then you pick it up, you shake it, and you're not hearing nothing in there. It's like, yeah, okay.
like, I get it, and that's fine. At least
Mhm.
it's going to produce something else instead of the landfill. But if they really wanted to ace that one, like, let's say they really wanted
Oh
to
yeah.
ace that one, they could have a little port on each cartridge so that you and the cartridge could be wed
Mhm.
for the duration of the
Oh
the,
yeah.
the function of the thing, so that you can click and you can get the ink anywhere you want
Yep.
and stuff. And
Well,
that way your purchase is once 1 year, and then 15 years later you might have to. But they don't do that.
for instance, on the toner cartridge, um, it's a red plug. You can pull that red plug and fill it. The problem is that little chip in there is going to keep telling the printer that it's empty.
Yeah. So I say,
So, and I don't know. There may be something on the market that you could plug into that and it'll reset it. I don't
yeah.
know.
But you see what I'm saying, though.
I do see what you're saying.
Everything has its. But your point is well taken.
Mhm.
I'm just saying, like, if it was more cost effective for them to burn 6 football fields of cartridges, they would do it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Steve has a point here because he's absolutely right. You don't want to play with toner. It's the same toner. You ever taken apart or refilled the toner cartridge in a
I
copy
have.
machine?
I
It's the
have.
same stuff. One tiny spill and it's every damn where. You walk around looking like a panda because you rubbed your eye and there it is. And I mean it's a mess. It's like the graphite that you use to lubricate locks with. It
I,
just goes everywhere.
I saw, you know, humans have every now and then, and more often than not, one is pleasantly surprised by little trivial little whatnots that people come up with and stuff. And I ran into a little mini video
uh,
where they said, let's really take a look at what Back to the Future got right and what it got wrong. And so they go through a few of the things and they say, oh, well, look, just they had the face to face chats,
mm-hmm.
with the TV, right? And that's good. One thing they got wrong was, oh wait, everybody's got newspapers in the future. No, nobody uses newspapers. They just go for the thing. But they get the face to face chat correct, and they go down the line with a few things. I forget some of the things, but they go through a lot of them, and then it just slipped my mind. But there's one that they got wrong, which was crap. It just left my mind because I started thinking about newspapers. Um, there was one that they got wrong. Everybody in the future, the newspapers. Crap, Mark. I'm sorry this had to happen, but I'm sure
Well,
it'll come up again.
yeah, it'll come to you. It'll come to you.
I hate when that happens because it
One
was a
of
good
the
one.
one of the first internet memes that I can remember seeing, and this was back in the dial-up days on America Online or CompuServe or something like that. But there was one of those pictures being sent around, and it was some poor woman, a younger woman, in an office standing next to a big copier machine. I mean, this thing looked like the size of a damn.
I just
Um,
remembered.
okay, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Let me just throw it out there.
Go ahead, then I'll finish.
The one that because it reminded me of our the one another thing they got wrong was that for some reason they thought in Back to the Future that everybody in the future is going to have a fax machine.
Yeah.
There's faxes in the kitchen, there's faxes everywhere because there's a scene where and it's hilarious when he said that because it's one of those things that it's like it's useless now, but there you have it.
Well, for a little while, there were fax machines all over the place. For a little, I mean, but it was a brief point in time because as OCR, optical character recognition, became better and better, and then email got better and better and more secure. People just stopped with the fax altogether. The only reason for a fax was to transfer signatures. But
It's like voice messages.
yeah.
I am not
Mhm.
fond of voice because why voice message when you can just either type it or call the person?
Um, well, I look at voice messages as I tried to call you, but you didn't answer, so I left you a message to tell you I called you.
You could text, you read
Yeah.
it, you're done. But the voice message you're sitting there listening to, I mean, I guess a preference and whatnot, but I don't know that I'm the only one that
Well,
feels that way.
you're probably not, but I think there are some things that are better spoken about either face to face or if that's impossible, over the phone.
Hi, I'd like to call you about
Because, well,
your car insurance.
what means more to you? Somebody saying happy birthday to you either on the phone or face to face, or somebody sending you a text?
A
You know,
text.
and how would you rather hear that one of your relatives just passed away, face to face or on the phone or through a text? I think that's better person to person. You know, just me.
Yeah, if you're gonna increase the scale,
Mhm.
but in most cases, I think that a text suffice.
Well, yeah, if it's I'll be ready at 4, a text, yes. You don't need to call me with that.
Hi, Barbara. I'm calling you. Well, I guess you're not there because I'm talking to you now, leaving you a message. Yeah, I just finished making. I mean,
Yeah,
just
I'm with you there.
shoot it and
Mhm.
and call it done and freaking just type it and get
Mhm.
it. Yeah, because I mean, well, hell, we communicate through text. I understand perfectly when we communicate. I mean, it's simple,
Uh-huh.
but the information is given for whatever reason that the
Mhm.
topic is about.
Mhm.
And
I
if I want to expand on that,
I was just gonna say that. We
yeah,
both
okay,
know that if this is something that's either gonna take too long to type out or screw it, let's just talk about it, then
right.
we'll jump into a video call. So, yeah, I'm with you 100%.
I mean, well, that's us now in 2023 with the available technology. Who knows what that?
Sure.
But, well, talking about technology, could I insert what we were talking about more or less now?
Well, let me finish about this woman.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. Now, it was one of the first internet memes I ever saw, and like I said, it was one of these pictures just being sent around, and it was some poor woman standing next to a copy machine that I swear was the size of an aircraft carrier, and she was covered head to toe with toner. I mean, just absolutely head to toe, and you could see one of those big, long, tubular bottles. She
Yes.
had it in her hand, and the cap is gone. It's missing, and the only way you could tell what color her clothes were was she happened to be standing kind of oblique, trying to turn away from the camera, and you could see that she had a black and white striped top on
Damn, dude.
and blue jeans, and the caption was "oops," and that was one of the first internet memes I ever saw, and I'm like, oh god. Oh no, because I don't know if you've ever gotten that stuff on yet. It don't wash off easily.
That's freaking crazy.
And especially if you make the mistake of jumping into a hot shower, because it's just going to drive it deeper into the pores of your skin.
This reminds me of, I hate to go there, but I have to say, and you haven't seen it probably. Mr. Bean had a movie, and it
Mhm,
was about him being an art critic for some reason.
mhm,
They mistook him for an art critic or whatnot, and he's flown to LA and he's bumbling along the ride, just going.
mhm.
He ends up in this luxurious museum, and they have this painting, and he's left alone with it, and by mistake, um, he for some reason he sees a little smudge, and he does one of these things, and he touches the painting, and then he grabs his pocket a handkerchief, and he goes like that. When he goes like that, there's ink on it because he had a pen in his pocket, and now this like $1 million painting now has a rub of ink on it, and he pulls out the pen. He's like figuring out why, and he pulls the little lever on the pen, and more ink shoots on the painting, and it
Jesus.
just gets worse and worse and worse, and well, whatever. It's Mister. And at the end of the time, at the end of the thing, he rubbed it so much. He took it to the bathroom. He rubbed it like, and there's like a big white. It's just the canvas in the spot where the head is, and he painted his own head like Mickey Mouse style. And when the
Jeez.
guy, his friend that brought him there, comes into the room, dude, it's hilarious. You haven't seen that movie, have you?
No, I
Oh,
haven't.
Mark, you'd be well.
Was it Mr. Bean? Was that the movie?
Mr. Bean, the art critic, or Mr. Bean? I didn't.
Okay. I'll look
Some.
up I'll look into some Rowan Atkinson flicks. I like Rowan Atkinson.
It's funny as heck. I mean, some of the gigs, some of the skits are funny. In general, it's just like it's a movie to fill in for the skits,
Yeah. Okay.
but it's still fun because of the skits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lindsay, she seconded. Never wash your hands with hot water if you spill any heat sets it. Yeah. 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 You mess with toner, you in a heap of trouble, boy. But yeah, you can go ahead and get into the one that you were talking about, because we do talk an awful lot about technology, even though we're not a tech podcast or a tech channel.
People. Or I'm not a
Mhm.
tech person
Well,
necessarily.
I used to think I was pretty tech savvy, and when we were talking about still today, when we're talking about PCs, I can hold my own. I mean, um, I'm not a techie by any sense, and I'm not an expert by any sense of the word. But I can fix it. I can work on it. I can troubleshoot it. But that's about it.
According to the items that we have at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you were to rewind this 1,000 years in the future, it's like two guys over a foundry,
Yeah.
like shaping steel, saying, "Yeah, I'm up to date with all the current whatnots.
Yeah.
Don't
Did
you
you see
think?"
this? Did you see this hammer? It's got a round head on it instead of a square one.
I
Oh
mean,
man, that's high
that's
tech.
that's the scale of what's possible in the future that we don't know.
No,
So,
Jessup, you hit it with the rock twice. Oh, okay.
although they did do great work back then, there's some very elaborate
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
I mean, not that if I were given the tools today,
Oh no.
that I would do anything even remotely,
Yeah.
like those crowns that they would make and rings.
Oh yeah.
Like they had like jade rings and with like a portrait in the jade ring.
Yeah.
It's like what the heck? These people back then without,
That's why they call them
electricity.
artists, man. That's
Yeah,
why they
some
call them
serious
artists.
stuff.
Yep.
Um so I guess I was gonna say is that I this is gonna sound a little weird coming from me, not really. So here's the thing. Well, it's the truth, isn't it? I mean, it's like, um, I I'll tell you straight up how it is. It is how it is. I had seen it last week,
Mhm.
the Hawaii fires.
Uh-huh.
I saw a video on it, and it was disturbing. It was a simple video. There was nothing wild in it, but it showed the
Mhm.
devastation, and it was
Mhm.
disturbing. And then I moved on to the next video. It was another video about it.
Mhm.
I watched that, and down the line, I kept getting fed for every two videos, mini videos of
Mhm.
other things, a reoccurrence of this Hawaii thing.
Uh-huh.
And there's a lot going on with that Hawaii thing, by the way.
Yeah.
And I was pretty upset,
Mhm.
um, and a bit uncomfortably angry
Mhm.
because of some of the what appeared to be bad moves made by officials and so just a series of things. But I also ran into some odd variations in terms of what was what and how was what and so on and so forth in terms of I'll say on the edge or well within the conspiracy thing because you have an event,
Mhm.
you have the internet, we have the internet,
Mhm.
we have people that are putting out their opinions over the event,
Mhm.
we have consecutively people that were in the event sharing their clips or whatever of the event. We have news, official news reporters reporting over the event. We have all these different elements coming, and then you have this element that is attaching conspiracy to the event,
Mhm.
which gets into a whole thing. And then, so you have this whole cornucopia of different um uh, perspectives being placed in front of you. And by the way, the locals are not very happy, and
No.
some are suggesting some wild things. And by the way, there was apparently quite the death toll, including
Yeah.
non-adults,
Yes.
as an example, according to what they're
Yes.
suggesting. And then there's so it's this whole thing going on, and I know it's a little bit disturbing, but um, I saw that. I considered, and I had been seeing for the past week these lasers coming down, like
Mhm.
little clips suggesting some sort of within the realm of conspiracy, lasers coming from the sky for some reason and setting little sparks and stuff. And then there's other people, and so it just snowballing into this whole thing. Now, I'm just one guy,
Mhm.
not living over there by any stretch of the imagination.
Mhm.
I'm looking through this window of internet. There's all these people barking, and then I remembered AI.
Mhm.
We have, I guess I'll see what you say, but I'll just wrap up with saying we have all this information that comes, and this is just a vehicle
Hmm.
for this topic. Plus, we have this AI where they can recreate for for whatever it's worth. They can recreate anything to put people in scenarios that didn't even exist. And so, my question is, among whatever else comes to mind, I don't know that I can say that I can truly say that what we observe is accurate, or what part of it is accurate and what part of it is not. It's gotten to that point.
Okay. I don't know if you remember, but it was just a few weeks ago I brought this very topic up, and I think I asked you that exact question. Do you think we will get to the point, and how soon do you think we'll get to the point to where we start questioning our belief in what we see?
I said we're already there, I think.
Or something along those lines. So
Yeah.
you're basically reinforcing that.
Yeah. But this was sort
Okay.
of a weird situation because of the, but yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Um, it's funny you should bring this up because Linda and I were talking before dinner earlier this evening. She was watching a video that came up as one of the reels on Facebook, I think,
Mm-hmm.
or something like that.
Yep.
And it was just somebody driving through, and it was marked, Lahaina, Maui, Hawaii. And we've been there, and we lived in Hawaii for 4 years on another island, but we have been to Lahaina, we've been to Maui, and we have seen that area. I won't say we know that area, but we've seen the area. And she was saying, and I just kind of glanced at it. I was in the other room, and I was kind of glancing in at it. But she said just something about that video didn't look right. It didn't look Hawaii. Now, she couldn't point at any one thing other than the type of trees that they were seeing along the side of the road. And I said, okay. She said, yeah, there's a whole bunch of pine trees, cedar trees, spruce trees, things like that, evergreens. She says, you want my God's honest opinion? It looked more like Northern California than it looked like Hawaii. And we kind of had that discussion back and forth. Now, I've seen other cases. Now, I didn't sit down and watch the whole video. She said the car was, showing basically burned out vehicles and what have you along the side of the road. But if you remember a few years back, there was a town called Paradise, California, where fire raged right through it and destroyed the entire city. And there was a lot of footage just like that going around at the time. And I have seen through other videos on other channels and various other things where people will take footage from one event. All you have to do is say change the title, just add your own title and add your own date. And now that footage that was shot 4 years ago in California is suddenly, no, that's Hawaii.
Well,
And now I'm not saying that that's what this was, but I'm saying to us, it didn't look like Hawaii. It looked like Northern
all right.
California.
So,
But that's just two people's opinions.
well, a lot of problems there because we either have to, well, a few things. One, we have an opinion because we're observing something.
Sure.
It doesn't jive. I wouldn't know either way because I haven't, but um, either we have to second guess ourselves, leave it as is, but it does leave the question now, and leaving the question. Well, one has the itch that one, in many cases, to keep scratching, but if the media, and I'm sure they do this, use filler imagery or
Mm-hmm.
videos in order to get their message across over a story,
Mm-hmm.
and people are observing this in this day and age,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna fine tooth comb it because there's people out there that are on about and good for them. They may be the more crazier ones in society, in the outskirts of town, but they dig through these and they find these little gems of inconsistencies. But the problem is also that once we have an inconsistency that's been discovered,
Mm-hmm.
um, how far down the road does perhaps, and this goes more towards something that you would usually sort of try to reason out, which is let's not get beyond ourselves with an assumption, but
Right.
but if you start, I guess if you start off with a lie,
Mm-hmm.
there's no telling how
Yeah.
far it's going
Yeah.
to roll until it becomes three green aliens sitting on a spaceship drinking Slurpees.
Yeah. And that's the problem. Once you start with a lie, once an inconsistency is found, whether it's admitted to or not, but once an inconsistency is proven to the majority of people's satisfaction, whether it's true or not, the old cliche, you can't unring a bell, and that's forever going to be associated with that event. If you take, if I take footage of my fireplace real close up, and then post it up on Facebook and saying, "Oh yeah, this was my neighbor's house yesterday," now that becomes fact, even though I lied about the whole damn thing. We've seen cases like that. That's an extreme example. But
I don't know.
but
I
once
don't know that
an
that's extreme.
but once enough people believe that and propagate it and spread it out there, it becomes fact.
So
So, yeah, with AI technology being the way it is, yes, it would be very easy for somebody to, like you said, put into a couple of green space aliens sitting up there on a spaceship drinking, blue raspberry Slurpees, because the carbonation is what gets them high, shooting off lasers to start fires.
for
Yeah,
some
you can
reason
do
in my
that.
mind, I pictured those aliens saying "yeehaw" while they're shooting the
Yeah,
lasers.
exactly. Well, they're rednecks on other planets too. So,
I, I, I just okay.
well,
So
we woke Greg up.
uh-oh,
Did someone say Slurpee?
that was a little Easter egg for Greg. And by the way, I don't care how many times I say it. I won't extend it this time that long, but I will say once again, Greg's Nigerian prince internet scam um
Explanation.
philosophy,
Yeah.
yeah, explanation applies even here. See, here's the
Yeah,
thing.
you're absolutely right. It does, because you don't have to have everybody believe it. But if
Right.
you send that out to 1 million people and 100 believe it, that's good enough.
Greg's contribution to Western civilization was his thorough, quickly set forward explanation using the Nigerian prince phenomenon. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, but once he, and in fact, he has no idea. He thinks I'm pulling his leg, and you probably do too. But I have used that. I've told people about, because it's so simple and it's so wonderful. It fits perfectly. Now, don't go crazy, Greg. That was
Also
that
happens
was
to
your
be true.
15. That was your 15. That was your 15.
For those that don't know, we were having a discussion about the Nigerian prince scam one night, back but behind the scenes, backstage, and Eloy was saying, "Well, I don't know how people don't understand that. Do they think they're going to get 1 million people?" Greg just broke it down for him and said, "No, they don't want 1 million people. They just want one or two that are gullible enough to believe it. They don't need 1 million people. Just one or two is good enough."
But you see, another thing about that is, and I don't want to get too controversial here, but we have played tug of war with this concept before. But I
Mhm.
guess, well, with what I'm about to say, but I guess only in the context of if we bring it up over. So if I say it broadly without an example,
Okay.
it won't be. But if I bring in a certain example,
Sure.
then all hell breaks. Not all hell, but within
I do know what you mean. Yeah.
all hell the way we do all hell. um, which can get fiery, but it's not, um, well, how? I can't say it without it having connotations. I'm just gonna say. So when it comes to any conspiracy,
Mm-hmm.
the response that I've heard before that I don't agree with,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounds reasonable at first glance, but is that, well, everybody had to be involved in it. Notice I'm using a broad, so I'm not going to a
Sure.
specific.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
let's not grab on to a
Okay.
specific, or
Okay.
unless you want to, but I don't really want, um, unless we have to. I don't believe, just like this Nigerian prince, all you need is a
Mm-hmm.
required certain amount. I think that public opinion, manipulations, media type
Mm-hmm.
manipulate, like stuff like that, or like something printed on in the paper. I'm sure throughout time, even in the old west, I'm sure there's cowboy guy sitting in a saloon. He busts open the paper and he reads this thing, and it's a bunch of malarkey,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't buy it. But I'm sure that the other patrons of that bar were like, "Did you hear about this?" So I'm sure that there's always been
Yeah.
naysayers in the past. It doesn't for something to be successful, for a lie to be successful,
Mm-hmm.
and then some sort of enterprise, you don't need all people to believe. You just need
Oh,
enough people
yes.
for it to roll down the road.
Yes, absolutely. You just need enough people to believe it. Number one, to make it worth your while. Okay. Because you got to remember, Linda and I were kind of talking about this with that one clip, because my initial response to it was somebody changing the title and posting a video for the clicks, for the likes, for the views.
Well, that's the quick.
So
That's the standard. If you're a YouTuber slash whatever,
mhm,
that's what you're going after, the clicks. Yeah.
exactly, and but it doesn't even necessarily have to be monetized either. Just that instant rush of popularity. Oh, my video got 6 million views. I mean, holy cow, that's an adrenaline rush to some folks. Other folks, they don't care. Other folks would say, only 6 million? Damn, I got to try harder next time. But you only need a few people to look at it and believe it to make it worth your while to keep doing that. If you're monetized, you're not going to get everybody, but you're going to get a certain percentage who are going to go buy your book or go subscribe to your YouTube channel or go, sign up for your email newsletter or buy your merch off of your website. You don't need 100 million people to do that. If you can get 10 or 20, that's a little bit of money.
Let me just say this though.
So,
Let's balance. I want to balance that out with this little notion, and you
okay.
tell me if you agree. I hope it's none of my business whether you do or not, because
Mhm.
it's your right to
Sure.
disagree. But I would hope that you would think that this is okay. But don't let that influence you. You tell
Mhm.
me. That would be fine. What you just laid out,
Mhm.
in my opinion, maybe yours. We'll see. If they are making money or getting the clicks or this
Mhm.
by posting something, as long as they are conveying a truthful rendition. I mean, they could have, if their job or the job they're performing at the moment is to bring information as is, and you can even qualify, you can say, this is what I saw and this is what I think. I still think that person still falls within the category of, that's quite all right. They're making money, but they're bringing but in comparison to, hey, look at this extravagant crazy thing, and they're manipulating on purpose, that's a different story.
Well, but they don't even have to do that. They don't even have to go that far, because a lot of these people, I don't have a job. I can walk down the street and shoot footage as I'm walking down the street, and I can make up any story I want
In your birthday suit.
in my birthday suit. I'll never be able to go into that convenience store again. But you knew the job was dangerous when you took it. Um, but I can make up any story I want just walking down the street, and I can post it. I don't have a job, so it's not my job to convey true information. And a lot of these people who are posting videos, it's not their job to convey truthful information
That
either.
that
Now,
is a good point.
if you're talking about media companies, I agree with you 1,000%.
I'm talking about ethics, but media companies
Right.
fall into that. I'm talking
But
about
but
ethical.
but I'll give you for instance, when the pedestrian overpass collapsed almost in front of your house, you
Hmm.
were out there with your camera
Yeah.
and you were taking footage and you were talking to people.
Mhm.
That wasn't your job
No.
to do that. You did that because, holy hell, this is a disaster that happened right in my front yard.
Yeah.
News people could have contacted you and used your footage for a fee, of course. You could have solicited it to all of the TV stations in your area, or even NBC, CBS, CNN, whoever. You could have done that, and it'd have been right within your rights to do that. But it's not your job to convey that information. It's their job to make sure that the voiceover over your footage is accurate, you know?
Right.
So you have a gray area, this or that. Now
Uh,
you have a whole bunch of people out with just about everybody in the world has a camera now if you have a cell phone. So you've got, 8 billion reporters in the field every hour of every day. Stories are going to get convoluted.
Let me make a qualification.
Mhm.
If you're considering the dignity of sincerity and not wanting to mislead people
Mhm.
with what you're about to put out,
Mhm.
if your idea is a transparent rendition of what you observed in terms of capturing some footage of some event or whatnot, um, as opposed to I think it was lasers that were beamed down through reflective whatnot and this and that, and you're adding all this stuff. Now it's true whether the guy that's saying all the laser things or the guy that's just putting out the raw thing, it's true that they both have their right to say whatever the heck they want. But I
Right.
guess I was speaking to the ethical thing of it. But that ethical standard
Mhm.
is something that I'm considering, and it's not something that another person would have to. But if the case is that although I have that standard that swirls around, that do I
Mhm.
really want to propagate lies, or do I
Right.
want to give it as clear as it is so that it's not malinterpreted and people know?
Right.
If it's true that which it is true that other people can do as they so choose and create more confusion, and if you compound that, which we have in society,
Mhm.
you get a situation where, I mean, there's a lot of fibbing going around
Sure.
and convoluting of things, and so it's a big mess.
Right. But you touched on a profound point there when you talked about ethics.
Yeah.
Ethics is a subjective thing. And the guy who was there saying that, yes, these were space aliens with the blue raspberry Slurpees yelling yeehaw, firing off lasers, and I'm adding the space aliens because I like that touch. He may or may not be totally convinced that that's the truth. Then again, he may be doing that for the clicks or the views. Or he may be doing that because he has some other agenda that he's trying to push through. And this is just symptomatic of the larger problem, that kind of a thing. So it ethics is a subjective thing. Now we as a society can collectively decide what is ethical and what isn't. But for every average, there are outliers. For every mean, there's an outlier. And somebody's going to say, screw your sense of morality, I'll do what I want.
Well, if you think of all the people that may record and put footage out,
Mm-hmm.
each having their own ethical guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them might cross with each other There are some basic things that might be applicable for all people involved in this distribution of different videos and materials, but that's not exclusively the case. There's people that vary in what they think is acceptable and not, which that's the case, apparently. Um, and you have people believing the stuff that they're saying too, that's completely radically. I'll give you a solid example. The issue over, yeah, this is going to cross into the concern, but just as an example,
Mhm.
one thing, this is going to be touchy, but it's not really, because I'm just using it as an example. One thing is to say, well, the moon landing, these particular issues I find disconcerting due to X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
That's one category of a person questioning something that's a
Okay.
standard, solid thing. And now you have another question. The moon landing, due to in 1960, and then this guy by the name of this, and then because this little button here, and that's why because of it, and then they create this tapestry
Hmm.
to backtrack, fulfill the conspiracy without anything to back it up in terms of like a solid whatnot or this that.
Hmm.
You have a group here that's saying, well, due to this and that, I think that there's an issue here. That's one thing. But
Hmm.
to then go further down the road and say lizard people, where did you get the lizard people from?
His imagination.
Okay. Oh, but that's not the only reason.
No, but that's
There's
but that's
there's
but that's a but that's a big motivator.
and there's people that are just there's also people that
Yes.
believe it because they self 1 2 3 until they in wrap themselves in their own
Well,
circular thing.
yeah.
So here's the thing: if there's all that, and then there's entertainment, some people will like, I will watch that for entertainment to see how they can get this across while the
Yeah.
other guy's
How
saying no,
how did
that's not true.
yeah, how did you make the leap from A to B?
Yeah, and I find discrepancies when people, the way people argue, you can argue in a proper way, but when you get pissed off, the people that are
Yeah.
saying not lizard people, they can't deal with all the bull crap, and so it becomes a
Mhm.
whole hot mess and stuff. But it's the psychology behind it that I'm interested in, whatnot. Um, so at the end of the day, we have all these people adding to the mix, plus the AI, plus we do know that people um um retain half of the story in many cases, even the
Yeah.
mainstream media, or particularly, at least it appears that way. We would have to hone into one particular topic, but there's plenty to pick from. And so how do we know to even believe what, and whether or
Well,
not we believe anyhow, what is dished out,
and
I mean,
and you're right to be concerned about that, and that's one reason why we as the consumers of this media have to be skeptical, and we have to check if something is that important that we're going to form this kind of a decision on. Don't you think it would be better to get a second opinion? I mean, if you went to a doctor and he told you that he was going to have to take off your right leg just above the knee, wouldn't you want to get another doctor's opinion before you said, "Sure, go ahead, cut it off"?
yeah.
You know, well, I obviously this is not as life or death as something like that is, but still, I think if it's important enough to where you're going to make that kind of a decision, you should at least look into it
Yeah.
and get from more than one source. You know, I my cynicism drives my 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 ability to be a skeptic, simply because there are certain people, certain sources that I automatically suspect because I've been burned before by them, and there are certain people, uh, stealing a phrase from Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. You know, well, this. news service says this. They don't have a very good track record. Let's go over to this news service and see what they have to say. They're kind of iffy on a good day, but a lot of their points line up. Let's go over to this source. They're actually pretty accurate and they line up with what these things say. It's one thing to say this news service lies. Really? Consistently? About everything? Really? So you're telling me that tsunami in 2011 in Japan, that was all made up? Because I saw it on this one news surface. So if they lie, then that tells me nothing happened in Japan because that should be false, right? You get what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
can't condemn with a blanket and you can't support with a blanket.
Yeah,
Just get
but
several sources.
my what I've observed from these, generally speaking, companies that report things
Mhm.
and individuals
Yes.
that do it independently is that they have the cart before the horse
Hmm.
in terms of laying out. So okay, so I'll give you an example. The problem is also convenience. So we want our prepackaged frozen food, let's get it
Now.
done information so
Hmm.
we can move on with things that are more important to us.
Yeah.
But that is also a problem. So I'll give you an example. So and this is a good example because it's good for me because it's what I'm on about with genealogy. In order for me to prove to in order for me to stand, have a leg to stand on, in to prove my genealogy, I have to demonstrate. Not, if anybody asks, if I say, "Oh, I am Eloy, son of Eloy," and or whatever the story is, going back in time, they say, "Well, yeah, well, what do you mean? Can you prove it?" So then well, here is my evidence. I have this birth certificate, I have this baptism record, I have these photographs, I have this, and then so what
Yeah.
I do is I build a track record, which thanks to Ancestry through Steve, um, that method is very logistically set out.
Hmm.
If the news were that strict, um, but they're very, what's the word when they editorialize?
That's it. Editorialize.
They
It's very much
editorialize
editorialized, and it's not in. It's not 100% in what they say. It's also in what they don't say.
the things they leave out.
Yeah, you can lie by omission. If you omit certain facts, it's just as much of a lie as if you said the sky is green and the grass is blue.
Um, I've run into a lot of that.
Hmm.
Um,
And that's what I
especially
mean. Go to different sources.
I've ran into a lot of that.
Hmm.
Not to jump the ship and go into a thing, but kind of. I've
Hmm.
run into and this is a touchy subject, especially growing up, completely American, not studying the history of other places, and now finding myself studying because of inheritance or genealogy.
Hmm.
Um, as late as 2006, they wrote. There's a book called 1776 where
Hmm.
they lay out the whole history of 1770. It starts off. I began to read. I stopped. There's no mention of General Galvez
Hmm.
and the front that took care of the British forces in Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, up the Mississippi River, which gave the Continental, Army a
Hmm.
reprise, and so and re-upped. I mean, just a whole series of things admitted, non-existent from the history. Um, Again, it's a touchy
Yeah.
subject, but at the same time, it shouldn't be. It should be American history
Hmm.
because those people are there's people in Louisiana that are descendants of those people to this
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. And they're just as much as much of a patriot as a descendant of somebody who fought in Pennsylvania or New Jersey or Delaware or anything else.
So there's a historical thing. So now, if historians
Hmm.
do that, which they have done,
Hmm.
if other type people do, what do you call politicians, which we know they do,
Hmm.
um, I'm sure we can dig up some examples. If the media, I mean, this is the world as it is. There's omitting little bits of information,
Well,
and so when I watch the a news thing, um, plus the AI possibility.
mhm,
Now, here's the thing. I'll just say, I'm sure this is going to be wild. I mean, we've talked about this before. This will be slightly wild. You might think it's exaggerated or some people out there, but it's really not to a certain degree. So I'm sure, I am confident that if I were to leave this room right now, get in my car, drive down to the airport, and fly over and get to your place, knock on your door, that you, Mark Lindsay, will be there
mhm,
as a real person
mhm.
that I'm talking to right now through this equipment and technology.
Yep.
Like, I have high confidence that this is true, that you're not. But here's the thing. But here's the freaking problem. Like, I know that if you did that and
Mhm,
flew over here, I
mhm,
know I'm real
mhm.
because I'm here. Or, I don't want to get too
Yeah. Also,
astro,
yeah, yeah.
but this is not where I'm going necessarily or at all. What I'm
Mhm.
going is that if this technology can invent friends, okay, so if there's,
Ooh, wow.
yeah, let me expand this little window. If at some point, or whether we're there now or will be in the future, we don't know, or have been since a while, we don't know. If there's enough memory storage, enough everything, where the machine can cater to each individual just in enough ways that it keeps them cocooned,
Mhm,
and it's all automatic AI. These are the stats for Eloy
mhm,
and Eloy's preferences and such, and this is how much he can tolerate, and this is what that, and we cater a thing, and so in walks in a set of friends, in walks in a set of movies, in walks in, and we know that that happens at a base level in terms of advertisement on the corner and this and
mhm.
that, but I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, but I will tell you, and by the way, we wouldn't know. The point of me saying this, the point of me saying this is that we really would not know the difference.
And that's when they know AI has been perfected, is when the average person on the street cannot tell the difference. If you are having, be it a text conversation with a chat bot, if you are having a text conversation with a chat bot and you cannot catch it, you can't make it slip, then that AI has been perfected. Now, the reason I started laughing when you said, if we can invent friends, you're confident if you came here and knocked on my door, I would answer it. Linda might, but yeah, the point remains, I'm here. Um, the reason I started laughing was, if I was going to invent a friend or invent a me, would it look like this? Probably not. It'd be like 6'2" and look like Mel Gibson or something, and it damn sure be in a
No,
ritzier
but
house.
that's for
But
you to
but that's
yourself.
for me to myself.
What if
Exactly.
what if I were to invent a friend, he would look just like you,
Maybe, maybe not. You
and the
never know.
computer would say Eloy's friend would require to look like this, be like this, have these have these set of
Right.
personality traits, have these restrictions,
Well,
you know.
but let me ask you this about that, and this is going to go get off into a different realm completely that I really don't know all that much about, rather.
We just
Excuse
crossed
me.
the Rubicon, by the way.
Well, we may or may not have, but think about this. Haven't we been doing that already for a number of years with video games? When you get a good video game nowadays, what's the first thing you do? Is you set up your character. You create your character. Now you're online, you're playing your multiplayer games, you got a bunch of other players. They have all set up their characters. Haven't we been training for that possibility for years already? because we have to figure out the physical attributes, what they look like, what clothing they're wearing, what kind of battle armor they have, their
Like a
skills, their
primer. We've
knowledge,
been
all
primed.
that stuff. Yes, we have been training for this forever.
Well, how about this? And I thought about this earlier, actually, because so I'll say this. As outrageous as this might sound, the technology, if you, okay, I'm prepping this because I'm prepping it. If, and we've used this that I'm going to say before in many
Mhm,
different occasions, but I'm going to prep it this way. If Mark Lindsay in 1992,
mhm,
or even further back, whatever, someone came and said to Mark Lindsay in 2023, this, and that. Mark Lindsay back then, without me knowing Mark Lindsay back then, chances are, I mean, maybe you wouldn't be rude about it, but I don't know that you would think that the person's quite all up there with all the stuff since 1992.
yeah,
Um,
with
neither
everything that's
here nor there.
happened, yeah.
But the same applies with us in 2023,
Mhm,
not only with what's coming in the future, but what may be already, due to the fact of the following. What if, whether it's now or in the future, or it has been, someone like Joe Rogan. I can watch Joe Rogan. You can watch Joe Rogan, the clips or whatnot. Our friends out there can. But what if the machine feeds us a slight variation of Joe Rogan saying something that caters to us, that propels us to
yeah.
either buy an item or what? That would be the epitome of tweaking the system, the machine, to the best direction, economically, and so on and so forth. So, or presidents, politicians.
Yeah.
Now, the trouble could come if I said, dude, I saw Joe Rogan and he said X, Y, and Z.
Mhm,
And if you go and verify that, you say, no, I didn't see it. Eventually, because people are stubborn and curious, they'll find out. But in just the right amounts, just like an advertisement on the corner of a screen or a song,
mhm,
or even below the audio receptive,
mhm.
just what I'm saying is that I can't trust what I see. I simply
Um, so basically, you're reinforcing your stance that we're already there. And
Yeah,
and and
I think the manipulation is there.
and
We're here.
well, I won't argue with that with you because I think the manipulation has always been there. Um, just in different ways. Now it's getting easier, but in a lot of ways, they used to be better at it because it was harder to do. You had to be really good to make it convincing. Now you just have to get a few people to believe that it's true. And once you sow those seeds of doubt, there's no going back, you know. So I won't argue that point at all.
No, I don't know that
I
that's true.
What do you mean?
I don't know if we're there yet. If that's
Oh
true,
yeah, no, I don't doubt that. But I kind of share your opinion. I do
but
kind of share your opinion,
it feels like if I can't,
and
you
that's where
can't
I was,
either.
and
You
that's where I
can't
was
either.
going, and that's where I was going with this. When you sow enough seeds of doubt into it, you have created that era of suspicion. Can we trust? Well, we know that people can manipulate the images. We know that people can manipulate video. They can add, they can take away, they can take people out of one place and put them in another place.
Yeah.
We know they can do that.
Hmm.
So just the knowledge that it can be done is sometimes enough for us to doubt it, whether anybody's done it or not. But you've sown those seeds of doubt, and you've created this aura of mistrust around everything and everybody. And I think that's only going to force people to go on the attack even further, even quicker, and even harsher. Because if you can't trust something, you're not going to support it. You're going to rebel against it.
Now here's a catch as well.
Mhm.
Okay, unfortunate. Well, I can't even say unfortunate. This is what it is, in my opinion. A human being, myself, all of us, by default, live to whatever degree each independent individual does, because it varies per individual, because we're all a universe of our own. But each individual has one foot in the now, in the solid, in the observation, and one foot in the imaginary. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that we could be very reasonable and observe something and say, this smells bad and I'm not sure about this, but this part's okay. We could do that. But we're also feeling creatures and we are susceptible to buy into the snake oil salesman's gig. We're
Mhm.
susceptible because
Right.
we need to be part of the society at one level. In other words, we're always coming in and out of a dream, so we fall for it sooner or later, in my opinion.
I
Let me
I
recap it. Let me add this cap. What I mean by sooner or later and all this is that if one story doesn't get you,
Another
another
one
one
will.
another one pulls at your heartstrings in just the right way, and that one gets you.
Yeah, coming at you from several angles at once. But and that happens to be very effective, as well.
Yeah,
Um, the man, it's
it's
I don't know.
problematic.
It's very problematic, but I think that may also be why I'm seeing. Excuse me. For some reason, I just got the hiccups all of a sudden. That I'm seeing more and more people just kind of tune out and just decide, you know what? I don't want to have to investigate every single thing I see in here. Most people don't. They're willing to accept something at face value, and that's it. I mean, we saw that in the 60s and 70s. If Walter Cronkite said it, it was so. And that's all there was to it. And there was no questioning of it. We saw that way back then. But now it's coming from so many places and so many voices and from so many directions all at once. More and more people are starting to just tune out.
And that's a problem too.
That's a big problem.
Because another part of the problem is, so what if, so remember, we have this percentage of people that don't fall for the Nigerian prince. We
Mhm.
have this percentage that does. Whatever that percentage might flux from one end to the other of the spectrum, what if it's part of the strategy, broadly speaking? I'm not speaking to, but like just
Mhm.
in general, that it's a given that people will, there certain amount of people are going to drop off and disconnect, but at the expense of, now they will be uninformed, maybe happier people. For
Well,
they'll be
but
happier people, but they'll be uninformed.
what I'm seeing is more informed on a local level, which I can only see as a good thing. You know, uh, it, when you're kind of tuning out of what's going on in the world,
Bad
you
people
have
can take advantage.
oh yes, bad people can and they will take advantage because believe me, everywhere you leak, somebody is going to hang a bucket. So if your attention's off of this for a little while, they can do more or less what they want because you're not paying attention to it. But hasn't that been happening on a local level for decades? I think it has.
It's part of
And
human nature.
well, it is part of human nature, but what I'm getting at is by people unplugging from what's going on 2,000 miles away that doesn't directly affect them, you know, I really don't, it doesn't affect me one way or the other, whether there was an accident on the Jersey Turnpike this afternoon, you know. So I'm more concerned with the local traffic and weather here. So forget about your national news. I'm watching the local news. And yeah, maybe they are tuned out as to what's happening back east or out here in the west. Maybe you're not hearing about wildfires up in Washington or up in Canada. but we are, because that affects us more directly.
Well,
And so we're going to pay a little bit more attention to stuff going on here.
okay, so that's a good point. You have said that slightly in different situations in the past, and I agree, and I'll expand on it. So, according to our system,
Hmm.
and it's not the we're not the only system that uses this. I mean, this is a thing that people on a local level are worried about local things and concerned about local things in order to solve a problem with a bridge, a problem with a water, main that blew, some
Hmm.
sort of the paper route got
Hmm.
disturbed because of what, just local things, or some sort of corruption.
Yeah.
Um, because that community in that local area that lives there, it's incumbent upon
Yeah.
them to,
Yeah, it affects us directly. Yeah.
okay, but and I agree,
Hmm.
but yes, we have our local news, but we don't have our local, or at least not here. I'm sure other places do, but investigative, deep diving locally to really weed out things. No, what we do see as a pattern in this country is casting a broad net nationally,
Hmm.
having the local citizens look at this national phenomenon where they have little say, weakening the strength of local areas. And so now people are more in a dream state of, oh, look over there in I don't know, in Montana, there was a bull that got stuck in a fence. Can you believe that? And it's stuff that we have no control over somewhere in Miami. And so you've created a situation where people focus on, it's just like, oh, did you hear that actor? Can you believe he's going out with that other that actress?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's
Well,
that weak of a situation.
and that's where we have set up technology and little pockets of information that are going to cater to those interests. There are people who care which actor and actresses are dating. There are people who genuinely interested in that.
Yeah,
It isn't me, but fine. There's a market for that. That market has been filled. There are all kinds of websites and YouTube channels and news channels, or not news channels, but cable channels about it. Great, terrific. Knock yourself out. Free enterprise. I'm all for it. There are other people who care about the price of corn in Iowa today. It ain't me, but there's a market for it, and I'm all for that. But what I'm getting at is we now see more and more people attending local city council meetings. We see more and more people attending local school board meetings because they're sick and tired of worrying about what's going on, pardon me, in Miami. They're more concerned with what's going on here in Medford, Oregon, because this directly affects their kids. So they got to get interested in what's going on here locally. You guys will figure your own stuff out. We got to figure our stuff out here. And I am seeing that. And I think it's nothing but a good thing.
yeah, yeah, I agree.
Um, I do think before you can criticize somebody else for the condition of their front yard, you better make sure yours is clean and spotless first. So cleaning up your yard, I see nothing but good coming of it,
I think that
because
I think they Go
maybe
ahead.
you cleaning up your yard is incentive enough for the other guy to go, you know what, ours looks a little bit trashy. We need to clean it up. Thanks a lot, dude. Now I got to go mow the lawn. Hey,
I,
one small
I
victory at a time.
I think that they've used. I mean, there's always that they, but I think that media and stuff has there is an attention to specifically local, but there's also attention to nationwide. And I think the push is
Hmm.
always to water down the
Yeah.
is to make people focus on things that are broadly, and we all fall into it. Or I mean, I can't say we all, but
Well,
you know,
to some degree or another, I think you're right. We all do to some degree or another.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just human beings, you know.
Well,
But because of our the way we are. Again, let me go back to the specific thing of the AI.
mhm,
If the AI, if so, we do know that they have algorithms already. AI aside, I guess
mhm.
that's part of AI in a
Yeah.
sense, but that figures out people's habits and whatnot. And at an elementary level,
Mhm.
they'll advertise brooms because you said brooms 5 times,
Yeah. Or
whatever.
you searched for a broom.
Or you search for a broom and now you have
Mhm,
a broom advertisement, whatnot. So at one level, I understand that as far as a newspaper having an article or an advertisement in the newspaper as part of the newspaper, but in the newspaper world back in the day,
mhm,
the person the company that purchased that little spot
mhm.
was rolling the dice
Yeah.
and hoping that whereas now these companies have direct access to target the people that are
Right.
okay. So if we forward that into facial reconstruction or just complete video reconstructions to
Mhm,
give you the pleasurable information, scenery, um,
mhm,
topic that you're interested in, plus their item, plus their political
mhm.
message, plus their thing that they're pushing, whatever that might be,
Yeah.
it's that much more convincing, and we would never know the difference.
And yeah, exactly. Exactly. That movie that you suggested to me several times, and I finally watched, and it was a good flick, The Truman Show.
Yeah,
If you watched the little things that were going on in his life, you never knew when it was the commercial in the show and when it was just the show. Now, they played it up, they went over the top with it. So you and I, as watching the movie, we could tell,
yeah,
but he never saw any difference because they were that convinced, and that was the world that he grew up in.
yeah,
They were that convincing, excuse me. And that was
yeah.
the world that he grew up in. So we know to look for that over the top.
But
And
we
in
don't know the
fact,
subtle.
I've seen a couple of videos by a few people. In fact, Tom Scott did one just the other day where he was talking about why some advertisements in various mediums sound louder when actually in decibels they're a little bit quieter. But because of the way they do certain things, certain ways they process it, the ad sounds louder because it needs to be heard. They want it to stand out. And in the process of this video, he wove in an ad so smooth you were halfway through the ad before you figured out it was an ad. And it's like the comment section was full of comments like smoothest transition into an ad I had ever seen in my life. Perfect segue, that kind of thing.
Well,
But we don't know how often that happens. We don't really see. It depends on what we consume too, because if I'm watching a how-to video on how somebody made this particular coffee table, it may or may not register in my brain that he's using a DeWalt electric screwdriver. Now I know the bright yellow, that means DeWalt. I know that. But medium blue, that could be one of three different brands. It may or may not register to me whether that's Flex or Makita
Tabo.
or somebody else. Exactly. So we already have that little subtle advertisement thing thrown at us without even realizing it.
We just did that. We just did a if you and I are both AI and our audience is watching us and we're actually we just gave them a commercial for 3 different brands of
And
tools.
you just stole my thunder because I was just going to say exactly that. And I
You're
just
kidding.
advertised for brands so smoothly people didn't know
Yeah, so let me throw this at you, Mark.
it.
This is this that I'm going to tell you is continuing with the theme of really in the conspiracy thing. It's
No.
anecdotal
Mhm.
according to my observations, and I don't know again Well, let's see what.
An invention of AI would say just what you said, Mark, about answering the door. Yeah, an AI would answer exactly that.
So, in keeping with this, I've been pushing out slightly over the edge things, but I don't think it's over the
It's
edge.
not really, I haven't heard you say anything really super over the edge yet because everything is within the realm of possibility.
And that's what's over the edge. That's what. But
But
anyways,
I
so
don't think that's over the edge because it's a fact.
well,
If you can imagine it now and you can come up with the right prompts, I could put you in a cowboy suit in 1865 riding the Lone Ranger's horse.
I'm an old cowhand.
Never mind the fact that you and Lone Ranger's horse were never alive in 1865. That's irrelevant. I could put you there.
Never learned to ride. So here's the thing. 3 times roughly, this has happened to me.
Mhm.
I have I have thought. Now again, the chicken or the egg
Mhm.
is, or is it me finding patterns? Okay, I have thought little pocket ideas with its beginning and end that's very specific. Now, I know people think a million things, so there's a laundry list.
Yeah.
Fine. But I've 3 times already ran into videos where I'm
Mhm.
watching the video and the person recites what I was thinking. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying
Mhm.
that they are reading my mind through. So I'm not saying none of that. What I'm
Mhm.
saying is that, am I thinking said thing, and I'm just using it in a broad, said concept because I came up with it in my mind of my own accord? Did I come up with it because I was prompted to somehow through what I consume? Did the person in the show speak it because they were prompted as well under the category that we're both involved in, like let's say in politics and whatnot? I know that can narrow down, but
Sure.
was the person prompted or was the person so that's another problem. I
Um,
don't know information that's coming to me. Um,
well, let's break that down. Let's break that down. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, you're talking about a specific YouTube channel, and you've noticed something over the past. Maybe you just noticed it over the past couple 3 videos. That happens where you're thinking something and he says it. It's like, son of a, get out of my head. The fact that you're on that channel means that you must think a certain way, whether you agree with what they're presenting or you don't know anything about it and you're just curious. You must think a certain way. I believe that not a lot of what we see is done by accident. Some of it is, you know, it would be very hard to fake a car crash and you end up being in the son of a gun, you know. It's kind of hard to set that up. Not saying it can't be done, but some things are just they just happen. You know, you can't fake a bolt of lightning that explodes the tree in your front yard. Um, but if you're going to a certain channel because you enjoy their content, the producers, the directors, and the spokespeople, the folks on screen and behind the camera, are trying to convey certain amount of information, and a good percentage of the time they're trying to elicit an emotional response from you. So I don't think that's done by accident. If you're watching a video and all of a sudden you think that dude's going to fall off the side of that sucker, and sure enough, he falls off the side of that sucker, they meant for you to think that. They wanted you to think that that was going to happen. That's why we're so surprised or pissed off when what we think is going to happen doesn't happen, you know?
Yeah, so I take into account just sheer coincidence, but it opened the door.
Well, but it's not coincidence. That's what I'm getting at. They want you to think that. They're trying to draw that response out of you.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Okay, so by coincidence, I'm trying to, I guess it's true we're on the same wave. It's true that if we participate in viewing um certain videos or
Mhm,
whatnot, or certain hosts and all this and
mhm,
that, that there are shared concepts,
mhm,
and and so by coincidence I mean that it's bound to happen that the two will align.
mhm,
um but you're saying suggest the suggestiveness of it
mhm.
will prompt you,
Yeah,
or prime you.
yeah. Just basically, they're trying to elicit an emotional response from you. This one video I saw on the scale of the solar system, and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago by that, and I don't remember the name of the channel, but there's a link to it over on our Facebook page at the Trampled Underfoot podcast Facebook page. The channel is linked over there, and they were out in the Black Rock Desert, which is another topic. And they set up a scale model of the solar system and did it. This is the sun. This is how big it would be if we could put it down here in this spot. And here is Mercury's position around the sun. And then it's this big and it's this far away from the sun. And but they went when you got out to like Jupiter, you're thinking, holy cow, this is big. And the dude on the video says, yeah, this is big. You're thinking, get out of my head. Well,
Yeah, I
it's
got you.
just coincidence that I happen to say, holy cow, this is big. But that was the response they were looking for. For every time you have watched a video and said, whoa, they wanted you to say, whoa. Maybe not at that exact moment, but that's what they were after.
So then that, and by the way, I think it's a given, but what we're saying, like, in other words, there's no, it's, we can't fight this one because it's practically a truism, because it involves culture. So what I was going to say, we are involved in, we were born and grew up in culture that
Mhm.
informed us, and there's any number of things that I could bring up right now that more often than not you're going to pick up on automatically and recite back to me.
Mhm.
Just the good old boys.
Oh, yeah. Never
Right,
meaning no harm. Yeah.
right. And so even though that's such a silly, simple little thing, but you can apply it to just countless everyday nothing items, Dawn or Palm Olive, your stove, and just basically we've been programmed for better
Hmm.
or worse. We've,
Yep.
and by the way, maybe this is the AI selling Palm Olive to the customers out here. But
Well, but it's the truth. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz. What's the
Alka
next
Seltzer.
line? I mean, yeah.
So, but here's the thing: one way or the other, we're going to be programmed. From the moment we're born, we
Mhm.
are being programmed. Now,
Yeah.
we we don't have to call it. We could call it being raised. We can
Hmm.
call it whatever we want to call it. But there's information going into that clean paper slate, and it's starting to etch itself. And there's a bunch of these papers that are being written on, which are different human beings in a geographic location. And at certain point, those papers become a notebook and a book and a
Sure.
dictionary and so on and so forth. And so we come at this point, set up and primed with idea. So our conversation now, if you were to place us somewhere in, I don't know, Mongolia, and we
Hmm.
tried to unpack all this, it would be an obstacle and a half, because there's too many notions that we already have agreed to without even saying it out loud.
Sure.
Um, so so this is just so we've been, like you said earlier, this has been going on for a long time. I mean, I think it's part of culture and this and that. It's just that I'll just say this and you tell me. I've heard it said before. How much original thought, how much original thought do we really as individuals have, and how much of it actually comes from a big toy box sitting in the corner of our house full of those building
Memory.
blocks,
Yeah.
and so, and how we decide to take those Legos and set up whatever thought. We're still,
Well,
it's like learning.
selective memory is involved in that. And I mean, different ways different people were raised and this, that, and the other. And we're all going to choose to forget some things. Some of us don't choose to forget some things, but it happens because we're people. Um, it, man, it's a strange one in that I don't think it can be quantified. How much of it is an original thought versus how much of it is just regurgitating the things that we've already heard? You know, I don't know that that's quantifiable because I'm sure we both think that our thoughts are our own.
To a degree, I
But
think that it's a difficult one.
yeah, it's a very difficult one because I think what it is more than an original thought is deciding which part of what we've heard, been told, seen, we're going to express right now. Because if we really want to be honest with ourselves, we can take any subject and we can come down on both sides of it.
And we
We
should,
could and we could make a logical argument for both sides of
and we
any
should,
issue.
and from in my belief system, um, as we should.
And I think you're right because and that's where uh,
But it
if
takes a long time to do that too,
if and it takes a lot of self-realization
and that's the problem.
because when the worst face to see when you're wrong is your own in the mirror. Nobody likes to admit that they're wrong, especially if they've been wrong for decades.
It can be very embarrassing.
It can be downright humiliating. But I mean, you can lose relationships over it. You can lose family over it.
It
I
could just
mean,
be embarrassing too,
or it could just be,
like an
yeah,
ego thing. I
an
mean, we
ego,
all have it.
a smack. But I guess that's why I constantly preach to anybody that will listen is to be skeptical, question things, verify, and think for yourself. Don't just regurgitate what you've heard other people say a million times because it does all come back to what to Greg and the Nigerian prince. You don't
It
need
really does.
everybody. You don't need everybody to believe that what you're saying is a fact.
I'm
You
telling
just
you,
need enough people to make it worthwhile for you to believe
I'm
it.
I'm gonna petition the city to to gather three
Mhm.
of our best artisans from the Everglades to the malls, from the highways to the shopping strip places, and I want them to construct a statue of Greg
Mhm.
with a big a big like some sort of scroll,
Reading a scroll, yeah.
and the story of the Nigerian prince
Yeah.
and his answer laid upon it.
Yeah.
And I want my fellow citizens to gather next to the bells that ring each Sunday, and I want them to gather there where the pigeons arrive, and I want us to just think to ourselves, he brought us he brought us forward in culture and
He br-
society.
he brought such joy, and we'll all have to gather around and sing his theme song. How much is that doggy in the window?
See, and that's if you were to have stuck with just the Nigerian thing and not gone on with that, um, everything would have been okay. But see, that's how.
No, I mean, no, we gotta do this celebration right. I mean, we gotta get schoolgirls in white dresses to dance around him with daisies in their hair, all singing "How much is that doggy in the window?" And people throwing printed copies of their Nigerian prince emails at his feet. Yeah. I mean, I'm all for it.
Some things
Greg
are
Day,
just.
Greg Day.
It's just so great. I'll tell you, it's funny, like talking about all these things and stuff, and it is a simple answer like
Hmm.
that, and it's not simple, but I'm just saying, like a quick, like it doesn't take a lot after it's said
Hmm.
for you to say, "Oh yeah," is what I mean. Um,
Well, but let's go back to your example of the newspaper back in the day. You were talking about people that bought that block of advertising.
mhm.
That was the Nigerian prince principle in action.
That's true. That's
Not
you
ev-
see,
not everybody needed a roofer.
see now you're getting,
Not
yeah, it's
everybody
true.
needed a roofer when they placed that ad in there, but there were six guys in town that needed a roofer and saw that ad. Maybe four of them called. Maybe
You,
they got one job.
you know what I love about this though is that
Mhm.
I've been doing this for a while. I've been fitting in the Nigerian princess in my daily routines. Anytime I see a situation, I try to fit it in. I really have, and now I see that you're fitting it into. This is a good,
Mhm.
because it's such a true thing. No, I was gonna say that like places like Pompeii
Mhm.
or like people wrote down these these things and these little truisms that
Mhm.
are found like
Yeah.
millennia later and stuff, and it appears that humanity is it's an amazing thing. I don't know why we always screw stuff up. I
Yeah.
almost put
Well,
it back.
well, because we inject our own personalities or our own interests or our own biases into it. That's how we screw stuff up.
Yeah,
Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Well, people automatically assume that means you go to bed early at night, you wake up early in the morning. That doesn't work if you're working the graveyard shift.
yeah,
You do have to go to bed early in relationship to what time you have to be to work if you're going to get up early enough to make it to work at midnight.
yeah.
So we have to take our biases out of it and look at it for what it
Adapt.
actually means,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. I mean, I guess in well, you had something to say. I guess to wrap it up, uh, this part because you had something that you wanted to.
I already did. That was about the toner cartridge. It was
Okay,
that was what I was going, because I know I have a reputation for being the guy who's eager to jump on and complain and criticize. And it's very rare that I'll come out and say, you know what, these guys really did a good job.
and I came around and filled
And
your
I
shoes of complaining.
No, not at all. Not at all. This is an interesting discussion, but it's something that I think is going to go on for a while, because I think we're only seeing AI technology and those seeds of doubt. I think we're seeing both of them in their infancy. I don't think anybody can really. I mean, there are a lot of opinions, but I don't think anybody can really accurately predict what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone in the next 10 years with this stuff, you know?
The only thing I'll add to that, and I agree, but the only little thing I would like to add to that as an addition, but this is my personal sort of take. I don't know this, but I
Mhm.
kind of feel like it's really true. Maybe it's wrong. Um, I don't know if things are happening sporadically. I think some big things are ushered concerning. Well, that's not even a far stretch. Because I'm thinking in terms of like world situations. I think things are there's an itinerary of certain things on a bigger scale.
Oh, sure.
We never know what'll ruin a plan, but I think that there's set itineraries that are beyond our
Yeah.
pay grade
Oh, yeah.
that are pre-planned into the future, and I think that we're along for the ride in many of these situations.
Yeah.
I don't know that, but on smaller scales, you can see a local government saying, we're going to plan this bridge or this train thing.
Mhm.
And I think at higher levels, they're like, we're gonna change this whole economy. We're gonna do this. We're gonna reroute, this type of thing. I totally think that
Yeah.
we're along for the ride
Yeah.
in certain cases.
In a lot of cases we are, because there's very little, and that's something that few people want to admit to themselves. If you step back and you look at everything involved in your life, you will be absolutely amazed at how little of it is under your control. There is very little that is within your control, and there's even less that is any of your business, you know. But there's very little that is really under your control. About the only thing you really have control over, for the most part, and even this is, you know, iffy, is the timing. Now, you may have to be to work at a certain time, and you may take lunch at a certain time, and you may get off work at a certain time. But you have a lot of choices that are involved around that, starting with, am I going to go to work today? But very little of what happens to us is within our control. So, we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I could walk down to the mailbox and get bit by a dog on my way. I'm not in control of that. All I can do is be aware of my situation and hope I can find a rock.
It's always the
You know?
dog that gets, or the dog could walk by and say, "Not today, buddy. You're okay."
Yeah.
In my book,
Well, this one dog down the road may jump up and lick me to death. I mean, you never know. I mean, it could go either way with dogs.
my
but
my my. Go ahead. Go ahead.
but yeah, that I mean, and we can make all the plans we want. I'm gonna go down to the mailbox. I'm gonna get this, and I'm gonna come back. We can make all the plans we want. We just have to be prepared for any contingency, because we don't know what's going to happen.
Well, there's a guy in Pompeii, um, covered in ash like this for the past 2,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
He had a bunch of ideas and thoughts and issues. He might have had to go to the town crossed over to the next town to get some wines or cheeses, and he was thinking, well, I haven't paid my um,
And
internet provider yet, or so, and from one moment to the next, he's frozen like this with Frodo, his dog, also
mhm.
sitting there like that.
And you never know. That may have been the last thing he said was, "All right, well, go visit your mother." You don't know.
Or could you imagine this one? Damn, I owe that much.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's so irrelevant. You
Or
see what I'm
throw me the
saying?
ball, Jeff.
I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have had those pretzels.
But
It's
yeah,
just.
really.
It's like. It's
No,
like.
he looked like that. I'm telling you, your face is gonna freeze like that.
It's like. So but using that as a lighthearted truism,
Yeah.
it's. Oh, let me. I guess. Let me throw this at you. This is a different thing, and it's not controversial or anything, but so it's not involved like this.
That's
I
what they
ran a
all say.
well, I ran across thumbing through just different documents and whatnot. I ran across a PDF
Mhm.
where a guy took 100 of his preferred cuneiform
Mhm.
notes
Mhm.
from Babylon, from Mesopotamia,
Mhm.
into one PDF to give an overall feel. He said, I've chosen these because it gives an overall feel of daily, just so you can get in the head of the people and this and that. And I downloaded it. Like, I ran across it just
Mhm.
because I ran across it, and I said, I can't just click
Yeah.
out of
All right. I
this.
got to see what this guy. Yeah. Yeah.
So I saved it. In fact, I was going to send it to you. Said, no, this is a little bit too much. I'll ask him about it if he does. I mean, it's kind of convoluted
Mhm.
in its thing, because at the same time, but I didn't want to lose it. Like, it's something.
Yeah.
I downloaded it and I read some of the things, and yes, it's it's a little bit convoluted the way they express things, but when you read through the lines, it's like, hey Mark, that shipment of wine,
Mhm.
I've I I haven't received it yet,
Mhm.
and your payment will be halted until you actually provide the thing. Tell your uncle, which is in charge of that. And they get into all these little things, and the humanity or everyday life interaction conversations. No, and they have some crazy ones too.
Oh yeah.
There's one where a lady, a slave lady. Oh, go ahead.
They open a scroll thousands of years old saying we tried to reach you about your extended warranty. Yeah.
Yeah. There's one that is not about a warranty, but might as well be, where it's the slave girl. She says, "My master, you have left me for X amount of months, or whatever the time frame, and I have nothing to eat. I wait for you to send me money. I would like to, if I should perish." She says this in the cuneiform thing.
Mhm.
If I should perish, just to be able to glance upon my master one more time. She says in the thing,
Mhm.
and she gives the name and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it looked like you can sort of fill in the blanks. The guy
Mhm.
probably took off.
Yeah.
He probably croaked in some foreign land, or
Yeah.
maybe hasn't returned. She's got no money, um, and she's hoping he comes back because he's his only way of sustaining her, and just stuff like that. The other guy with the wine,
Mhm.
and
Well,
it's awesome.
if you can look it up on YouTube, there is a video out there that tells you what the Rosetta Stone says. Most folks who have heard of the Rosetta Stone knows that's how we were able to translate cuneiform, Phoenician writing, and Egyptian hieroglyphics was because of the Rosetta Stone. We knew how to, and I don't remember which one it was. We knew how to read one of those writing systems, and we used that to be able to learn how to read the other two. Okay, but not many people know exactly what it says, and this video goes through it and this is what this says. It's
It's a
basically
treaty, right?
it's a proclamation about taxes.
Oh, oh, let me give you this little data point. I'm
Mhm.
I'm paraphrasing it, and it might be tweaked off, but it's roughly within the thing. Um, about 90%
Mhm.
of the cuneiform tablets in
Mhm.
existence
Mhm.
have not been transcribed.
Yeah.
They say that I forget the number, so I'll give you the window. Anywhere from 500,000 to a million, maybe more,
Mhm.
cuneiforms that have not been and
Translated. Yeah.
translated. And the reason being, according to the book,
Mhm.
because I did read the portions of the introduction, but then I ran quickly to read because I really wanted to read what they were saying. So I haven't delved into it, but I have it there in case you know,
Mhm.
I'm interested. They said the reason being that they haven't translated it is that all that stuff is that it's a lot,
Mhm.
and there's only a few people that are proficient enough
Mhm.
to even translate said
Yeah.
cuneiform.
Yeah. Just the sheer volume and the number of people who know how to read it and can translate it and its nuances. Because if you, I mean, you know, from English and Spanish, two modern current today languages, you know that there are certain nuances and certain differences in the language where a sentence that makes perfect sense in Spanish will make no sense in English, and a sentence that makes perfect sense in English will make no sense in Spanish.
Yeah,
I can't imagine something that is ancient and we don't even know the language,
yeah,
or
and
we're not sure of the language anyway.
they well, two things. One, they say that there's you can find them scattered all over, like they're it's all over the ground.
Yeah.
This stuff, there's stuff
Yeah.
just laying there.
Yeah.
Um, and they say that, well, no, not they say, forget that. And then I think all that writing,
Hmm.
damn.
Well, a lot of it you can imagine is probably because, I mean, they were engaged in commerce and a lot of writing was developed to keep track of commerce. So, how much of that is just receipts or bills? I mean, we may be looking at junk mail for all we know.
Well, yeah, it's something meant for one moment just to trend.
Yeah, like Frankie says, we've been trying to reach you about your Ox's extended warranty. You know?
But it really is amazing just to think in terms of, and by the way, the fact that they kept it in that mud brick type thing,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to us with paper
Mm-hmm.
or parchment back in the day. Their stuff is kept pretty darn well.
Yeah. Well, I
Like our
mean,
stuff, I don't know what to tell you because it's
well,
digitized in some cases,
well,
and
that's why we have the phrase written in stone. Because if it's not written in stone, how permanent is it? And even then, even if it is written in stone, where is that stone? Because there have to have been other civilizations that carved things in stone that were in environments where it just eroded away and we don't know what the heck it is.
yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
there's
when you think about the cave paintings in France or the cave paintings in Spain or the cave paintings in Italy, how many other paintings were outside the cave that just has been lost to time?
we'll never know.
Yeah. The only reason we have found those paintings was because they were kept out of the elements.
Yeah, it's some insane stuff.
Yeah.
It's some insane stuff, but yeah, no, I was fascinated. I was fascinated with it.
Burt's Burrows now have an affordable lease plan suited to almost any budget. Yeah. You know,
They were that normal,
yeah.
considering as far
Hmm.
well, at least that's the impression, considering the events that surrounded their existence. They were really trying to get either paid,
Hmm.
sell something,
Yeah.
or you know,
Advertise something
yeah,
new for 1300 BC, the four-wheel cart. Come on down. We'll trade it for two amphoras of wine.
it really is amazing stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, the fact that all this, and
Yeah.
what we have in our little stretch of time is paper documents.
Hmm.
But these papers, how many papers in your lifetime, and you guys out there in your lifetimes, just family stuff or just record keeping stuff, just general paper stuff, have you either burnt, tossed in the trash, or like shredded, or how
Yeah.
how, how many?
We're having a shred fest now. I mean, I bought a new shredder to handle it because we burnt the old one up. We're in the middle of a shred fest. I kind of got spoiled in my former life as a real estate agent, in that once a year the company had a shredder truck pull up, and right there in front of you, I mean, you could take a paper box full of documents, a box that reams of paper comes in, and they would dump it right in there, the whole box and all, into the shredder, and it would chew it all up and burn it right there, because you had to destroy records over 4 years old.
In a way, this is more convenient because we
But
keep what?
well, I was gonna say, but now I'm not in that industry anymore. I got to do it myself.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it's convenient for us to have because we can keep everything, and it's all kept in the places we sell and buy and whatnot. But for anonymity,
Yeah,
paper.
I mean, it's strange how things changed, because it wasn't that long ago. Your name, address, and phone number was in a book that everybody got a copy of. It was on their porch once a year,
Unless you had,
unless you specifically told them not to put your name in that book. You wanted an unlisted number, and you had to pay for that.
we had ours.
Hmm.
We had ours. I still remember mine to this day.
Hmm.
And it was in the phone book, you know. But nobody. I mean, every now and then somebody'd call,
Yeah.
but it wasn't a big problem back then that I could
No.
remember.
No.
It wasn't until this internet thing where all sorts of crazies are
Hmm.
calling.
Yeah. But even that is reduced. How much spam do you get in your inbox on your email now? Nothing like you used to get 20 years ago or 10 years ago.
No, nothing like I used to get. But I will tell you this, just as an aside. But I subscribe to one of those university. Um, it's one of the main ones that produce papers
Mm-hmm.
concerning all sorts of things, like
Yeah.
scientific papers or whatever, archaeology and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I subscribe. You can pay to get a special download, or you can get the PDF for free.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing: when you pick a PDF, they give it to you, and then they resend you that same PDF.
Mhm.
weeks and months. So I have lists of all the PDFs over and over again.
Mhm.
As it's kind of spam. Although I wanted it initially, I
Yeah.
want one copy, and I don't know why they do that. It's weird.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah, some things you want to use the service once, maybe twice, and then you forget about it, and then all of a sudden there's a flurry of stuff. I mean, I get happy birthday notices from message forums I haven't been on in 10, 15 years. You know, it's funny. So, well, we better go ahead and land the plane.
All right,
Did you want to do a bit of an after show with some of the folks out here in the chat?
we can do.
We can do. Okay, I'll post the link if you want to come yak with us after we sign off. There's the link. You're more than welcome to hop aboard and BS with us. Go ahead.
So, well, we hope you enjoyed this one. We talked a little bit about this and a little bit about that, and we do that a lot. We go live every Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific Coast time here on the Trampled Underfoot podcast show on YouTube, and we also have a website, trampledunderfootpodcast.com. You can catch our past episodes over there. You can download a fair amount of them by pressing the Wayback Machine button and dropping those onto your computer, phone, or whatever device you use to listen to podcasts. We also have a site over on Facebook, Trampled Underfoot Podcast on Facebook. Be sure to check that out as well, and we'll catch you next time. We are sponsored by
Harneal Media, your web solution for those of you who can speak, and your web source. Look, just you and me talking here, okay? If you're thinking at all about developing or increasing your web presence, there's no better way to do it than a website. Social media can only take you so far. You need to get a website so you can get your products and your services in front of as many eyes around the world as possible. And there's no better place to start than reaching out to my friend Steve Nealon over at Harneal Media. Offers 100% personal service. He offers competitive pricing, and you will not find a better service. You just will not find better service. He is right there on it all the time. I really don't know how he does it. So I'm proud to call him a friend. He's the only webmaster I will ever endorse. That's my friend Steve Nealon over at Harneal Media. That's HARNEAL Media.com. Sponsor of Trampled Underfoot Podcast.com.
All right. Well, we hope you have a safe one. We shall catch you here next week, same time, same bat channel. Be safe. See ya.
Peace. Y'all have a good week. Catch you
Strange,
on the
awkward,
after show.
weird, strange, awkward wave.